Anthem has been working with the community for almost 18 years. That's a long time to give that level of service. So how did this begin? And talk to us about what was in your head when you started this.
You know, you've asked me this at different times, you know, trying to reach
trying
in
to
and
piece it together.
And before this, I was in private practice with my husband, with marriage and family degrees, and seeing couples and individuals, teens. And I don't know, all my life, I have really wanted to serve as many people as we could get. And in private practice, actually, part of the story is my husband wound up having 5 bypasses all of a sudden. And
that's a lot.
And that's a lot. And we had this little child. And it was me looking at what I was doing and knowing I was probably going to take more of a central point in our family working. And one thing and another got put together. I was interested in learning some things, and in different things that happened in the community, wound up getting with several community leaders who were asking the question that Congress was asking: what goes on with families? What goes on with adults? What goes on with children, teens? How do we get this better? And during that time, they wound up through a bipartisan, you don't hear that word much, through a bipartisan act, put together some things they wanted. They wanted people to know ways to move out of poverty, and it not to be a lifestyle, but a phase that they went through.
Breaking those cycles of generational poverty that we talked about.
Right. It not passing from one to the other, because that's what it had started out. And with all the bad and good and ups and downs that Congress or presidents had tried, it just was what it was. And so they want to know how to do that. And so they put out a call for some grants. Now, I write, but I wasn't a grant writer. And so all this was me learning from things. And we turned in a grant, and lo and behold, we won. And I called one of them. They were across the nation, and I called Larry McDowell at HHS Region 6, and I said, "This is a trick." And he's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" I said, "Now we have to do it." Right. But I was sort of like, I don't know, And it was like knocking on the door and saying, "Lisa, can we please?" Just didn't know what to do. It was quite a world at that time. But from that, I always say I'm the one who's made most of the mistakes. And from that, the good thing is that I make so many mistakes, I've learned to learn from them, at least eventually. And so I think through my learning, through all my mistakes, is maybe one thing that helps. And I just got more and more clear, probably with the help of the feds, because I think they began getting more and more clear about what they were wanting, what they were asking for, and finding people who had the same heart. Mm-hmm. And with that began putting together a team that worked. Now that took several years. Of course
it did. Of course
it went through a lot of different people, but it just is so amazing now to have the team that we have, the people that we have who are so passionate about what they're doing, and the heart. It has to have that.
But what drives your passion, Cosette? What you have put together this organization. This is really your life's work. Would you say it's your life's work?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Besides my family, certainly this is my life's work.
So what's driving your passion to see communities soar, families soar?
So, because I don't think my story is so remarkable.
But it is.
Well, I've really had to think about this because you're always asking me. And so certainly several things occur to me. And, we're born into these families, and we learn how to operate. And what begins is our series of interactions that help us understand how to go about life. Mm-hmm. And for me, there were some negatives. My mother saw her mom die when she was 14. Her mom had tuberculosis and had been sick all her life and had never really gotten the love. She never had any memory of her mom holding her in her lap. And so as I grew up, especially when I was preteen and teen, my mother would climb up in my lap and ask me to hold her. And so I was a parentified child of sorts, that taking care of my mom. And I mean, I didn't think those were so abnormal. I just dealt with it.
You dealt with it because that was your life. You didn't know anything else to do.
I don't feel sorry for myself or anything, nor do I now. But I realized that through these different things, you just begin to learn and put together your world. When I was a teenager, I had a good friend who had cerebral palsy. And, she slurred her words and her motor efforts didn't work well. And there was 4 of us that would stick together. But I realized how we were treated different. Yes. We were going to a high building, and they wouldn't let her go up. And I'm like, why? And they wouldn't let her go up. And I realized it was because she looked different. She acted different. And through that, I began realizing that what we generally saw was what we looked at on the outside. And that they didn't see that on her inside, she was the most remarkable human being, very compassionate. She now has a doctorate and is working last time I was in touch with her, I was working at Texas A&M. So all these things put together, I thought, we don't see who each other really is.
Many layers of a human being, many layers of what it means to be a mother, to be a daughter, to have a family. Yeah. And there's a lot of brokenness because one of the things that I see in you is that you can pick up the brokenness in another person pretty quickly. Yes. And you can. And it touches you in a way that you want to help.
My wonderful mentor that I had that I will never forget said to me, Cosette, just remember, whoever walks through that door, you are not better than them, and you could be them. And that was the most helpful thing between my friend who had cerebral palsy, realizing that could be me, and yet people would talk in her face loudly and acting like she was an idiot. It was very insulting. And so I just put all these things together, and then as I pursued helping people, I just had this deep desire I always had about helping people who couldn't afford it.
And you recognize what I love about what you just said, and your evolution as a public servant, as a servant, is that there, but by the grace of God, go I. And
yes, that's a theme.
Yeah.
That's a theme.
And it's a theme with the staff as well, to be able to be on the ground delivering services to people who are really hurting and who are broken and who just need a chance.
Yeah, just need a chance.
We have serviced or have been able to provide services through our workshops, through the Tyro program, our signature program, or the mini clinics, more than 50,000 families.
Amazing, isn't it?
How do you feel about that?
Well, the bottom line is families determine how the world works. It's not bigger government. It's not great cops. It's not bigger buildings. It is families that determine that social center that set their child or children up for making it somehow.
One of the things that you have said throughout the years that I have, that I admire and I've repeated, I want it to come from you though. I don't want to say it, but you talk about miracles in this work.
Oh,
so would you please say that?
It really is true. It says it best for any way I can say it. And that is that this has brought me the closest to being part of a miracle. Seeing people, experiencing people, not change, but transform.
There's a difference.
There is a difference. There is a difference. And that's what I love.